He was a punk, and he lived in a huge city. It was Vienna, where he did everything. He has debts because he drank, but all women loved him, and every one of them called, "Come on and rock me, Amadeus." Hello, everyone, and welcome to Film Seizure. I am Jason Oliver, and with me are my two co-hosts. Jeff Arbuckle, say hello.
Hey, how's it going? I would prefer to be called the man, the music, the madness, the murder.
He was a virtuoso, was a rock idol.
He is Chuck Moore.
Chuck.
Yes, I am a virtuoso and a rock idol. I've seen a million faces and I've rocked them.
Oh, now we're just mixing things up. Now it's a whole pot of disaster. Today's episode, as you know, since you clicked on it, is the 1984 film Amadeus, about
the best picture of 1984.
The rock band Falco. No.
Yes.
It's about Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. I almost forgot the damn man's last name.
That's funny.
That is funny.
It's Wolfgang Buck.
Wolfie. It's about Wolfie.
Yeah.
This was a listener suggestion. Kurt, shout out to Kurt. Thank you for the suggestion. Hey, he did a thing. He emailed us at filmseizure@gmail.com, and he said, "Hey, you guys, I'd love to hear what you think about the movie Amadeus. Would you consider covering it for the podcast?" And guess what we did? We covered it for the podcast.
Yeah, he also put in a bunch of like stuff about how he was sick and tired of American Ninja. So like, let's can we be a little bit higher brow?
After 3 months of genre themes, we have kind of we've classed things up.
It's kind of like after 3 months of summer movies back in the old days. Now you get into the really good stuff.
Now you get into the good stuff. Yeah. But we're gonna bring in the heart of the summer with the classic. Best Picture winner, like you said, Milos Forman. In fact, the director of Jeff's favorite movie of all time, which we have also covered on the podcast.
And we also won Best Picture. No, it didn't. It did. Yeah, it did.
One Flew Over the
9 years
Cuckoo's
before.
Nest.
Yes. In fact, yes. So Milos Forman did in 1975 win Best Picture for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. We talked about that. I hear no arguments as far as what's a better movie than One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding. But the thing is that we will here next month talk about one of the competition that is made by, well, at least my still reigning favorite director of all time. So kind of interesting how all of this kind of works out, right?
Yes,
but
indeed.
But there's one thing I will say about Amadeus. Actually, two things. One, the poster is iconic. Almost looks like a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
But number two, even more so iconic. This is exactly the first movie growing up I used to always think that is an Oscar-winning movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just there's a grandiose look and feel, and everything is turned up to 11. And it's not in a silly way, not in a ham way. You know, this is what I use, and to a certain extent, to this day, this is what I still think is the quintessential Best Picture.
It is, in a sense, in the fact that it is clearly a it's a movie about a classical composer, right? So it has that sort of pedigree already of, oh, all right, this will probably be in the conversation as a Best Picture winner. It's directed by a former Best Picture winner on top of that. But it's also very populist, right? It was based on a pretty popular play, and it's an entertaining as hell movie. For the theatrical release, the PG theatrical release was about 2 hours and 40 minutes. But that flies by. The director's cut is 3 hours. That flies by. It is just a wildly entertaining movie for all audiences, right? And it kind of, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, politics in 1984 and politics now are much different, but there's also like a political edge to this movie that it's a little bit satirical, right? It's sort of like this classism thing that's happening sort of underneath it all. There's little throwaway lines that give you context in the world. It really kind of brings history alive in a lot of ways, which is kind of hard to do. Like to take a 18th century time period and make it contemporary. Right?
Oh, it absolutely feels contemporary. And I do like that there's a lot of thumbing the nose at the Holy Roman Emperor played by Jeffrey Jones. He's kind of an idiot, but he doesn't speak like an idiot. He doesn't act like Wolfgang Mozart does, which you think would make him an idiot, but you do see how smart Amadeus is himself. So it's like, it's really interesting.
I definitely want to get into some of the characterizations as we go through this, because Chuck and I had the advantage of talking about this a little bit last night because we were together and we had just watched it, and we agree that at times it's a bit uneven in tone. I don't think it's a perfect movie, and then there was also a lot of controversy about its historical accuracy, which I think we should get into a little bit as well. But it is just entertaining as all hell. Like, it really is. And some performances are better than others. Some are, I think, maybe miscast, in my opinion.
Couple.
But it doesn't always know exactly what type of movie it is. Is it a comedy? Is it a tragedy? Is it a horror movie? Right? Like, it's a little bit all over the place. But it does make it work, and it does turn in a very, very entertaining watch. What was this up against the year it won?
Oh, I got
The Killing Fields.
Yeah.
The Killing Fields, A Passage to India, Places in the Heart, and A Soldier's Story.
Yeah, in my opinion, this was probably a runaway winner.
I think the only other one that consistently got, I think, ranked higher than it was The Killing Fields.
Killing Fields is a very good movie, but it's heavy as all get out.
Right.
I mean, it's about genocide, right? I mean, it's
right.
Oof, yeah, it's not exactly going to be the populist pick.
I mean, it did win 8 of the 11 Oscars it was nominated for, so it was kind of one of those.
Very good.
Yeah,
very
it's not like the following year where I think a lot of people did not think Out of Africa should have won.
Yeah.
But anyway, this was the standout, obviously.
I have criticisms of this movie, but I also think it was deserving of the Best Picture, and that it is a very, very, very good movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think the criticisms, I kind of was kind of scrolling through that in the Wikipedia, and of course, like with most Wikipedia articles, I mean, you're going to see Roger Ebert's take, which is kind of lukewarm, sort of, while also being kind of highly praising it. It's an interesting blurb that they put in there, because it is all nice things, but they're just kind of nice. It was later that he considered it one of the great movies.
Let's do our thing. Let's do our thing where we talk about our experience with the movie.
Okay.
I have a somewhat unique one, but probably not for people my age.
What is it?
Well, it's I saw this in school. I saw it in school. I saw it in 7th grade music theory, which would have been like 1990, 1991, somewhere around there. We watched it in segments in class, and my teacher, he was such a good music teacher, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. But he paired it with the fact that the Charleston Symphony Orchestra in Charleston, West Virginia, where I grew up, was going to be putting on a performance of Mozart's Requiem, among other Mozart pieces. But Requiem was going to be the kind of the headlining thing, right? And so we watched Amadeus over a few periods of music theory, and then we could go to see the symphony. I think he either got discounted tickets for us, or he got them donated or something. But he had a bunch of extra tickets, and they were all up in the balcony. And we could go, and if we proved that we could go by bringing back a program, he would give us extra credit. So I went, and that was like my full introduction to Mozart's Requiem, which is to this day one of my absolute favorite pieces of music of all time. Like it will never fail to move me to some emotion, right? Like it's like therapy music for me. That the Requiem Mass that he wrote is phenomenal. The fact that it was the last thing he ever wrote and it was unfinished is like one, I think, the great tragedies of Mozart's life. The fact that he didn't even finish it, but it stands the test of time as this incredibly powerful piece of music. And that's kind of what this movie is about. This movie is like the mythology of Mozart's Requiem, right? Because there's been lots of theories about why it went unfinished, if he even wrote all of it, right? There's tons of conspiracy theories about there, and this is kind of one of them, right? And did his own music kill him, essentially, which I think is fascinating. But not, it takes a lot of liberties along the way.
Oh,
but anyway, that's my experience. That's my experience with this movie and Mozart initially. That was my entryway.
Yeah, I guess I'll go. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the first time I saw this. It was either late 80s or early 90s. It wasn't in school or anything like that. But it's always been there, like in the back of my head. Like, there are so many clips. I mean, there's so many, well, I should say scenes from this movie where it's like, oh yeah, I know the scene. And it's like, I haven't seen this movie at least in 30 years. Yeah. But I was sitting there, it's like, I know exactly what he's going to say here. The whole thing about too many notes and having only the notes he required, and so it's like, I've seen that clip many, many times, and I have no idea how or why. Making fun of Salieri's music at the party. It's like that's been done
iconic. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's been done in other instances too, or in parodied in other places as well. But it's like,
wait, where was that parodied? Because that's hilarious.
I'm pretty
like him blowing his tail coat out with a fart.
Well, something kind of similar to that, where it's like you're acting like a dullard while you're playing. Oh, yeah, really simple something. I want to say The Simpsons did it.
I'm sure
it was something.
I'm sure they did. Simpsons has parodied everything.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, hell, they parodied the Rock Me Amadeus for Dr. Zayas.
They did. It all comes back around. There we go.
There it is. Yeah, it all comes back around to the Planet of the Apes.
Oh my.
But anyway, yeah. So I mean, like, I don't remember the first time I saw it. I don't remember, like, I mean, I'm not a huge classical music fan, so it's like there's a good possibility I don't know any composer's works. But if you told me, hey, this is a song by Mozart, I would be like, okay, I buy it. And then you'd say, haha, it's actually John Williams or something. I'd be like, oh.
I would be able to name very few pieces of classical music to their composer, but I will always recognize two pieces by Mozart, and that's the Magic Flute and Requiem. Like, I will always recognize those two pieces.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, yeah, but I've always known
symphonies,
that this was,
I guess.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I've always been aware of this movie. I've always been aware that it was, a big time Best Picture winner. And for as much as I recognize so much of this movie really wasn't that big of a hit. We'll talk about that later too. At least not the way you would think of a hit. But anyway, no. So, I mean, like, it's always been there since I was a little kid. I recognize it's a very good movie. I still think it's a very good movie. But yeah, I mean, I don't I don't know when I first saw it or how I keep remembering everything about this movie.
Chuck.
I saw it on HBO in my teens. One late night, I watched it, and I think what I really liked about it then, I like the least about it now.
Yeah.
Which is the actual character of Mozart in this movie. Like his goofiness and ha 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 and all that stuff was like appealing to me as a kid. Now I'm like, that's a little much. Like I know at least it's in Salieri's description of him that we're seeing most of the time. So he's explaining him, he's mocking him and stuff, but it's just a bit much for the whole movie. But yeah, I did like it. I liked it a lot, and I watched it, I think, a couple times after that because I liked it. And then it's been since then since I've seen it, for sure.
I will say I agree to some degree about that. Yes, I do agree that he's like Tom Hulse. Is that how you say his last name? Hulse?
Hulse or Hush. Yeah.
He's the least good performance, but I think he's still good. I think he does what he is tasked to do. But yeah, I mean, you're right. He is the character Mozart through the eyes of Salieri, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like he's playing a buffoon in a lot of ways. Like if you come to this movie to see the true story of Mozart, you're going to be a little disappointed. But the true story of Mozart is maybe not going to be nearly as entertaining as this one.
Right. What's kind of brilliant about that, though, what I did want to add is that as Salieri's opinion in real time of Mozart changes, so does the acting of the actor.
Most definitely.
Which is great, which is kind of really cool. And I don't know if that was intended or not, because there are things happening to Mozart that would cause him to act this way too. But it is a very noticeable difference.
Oh yeah, their last scene together, where they're working on that Requiem together, or they're working on the music together,
the dictation,
all of it.
That's an all-timer.
I mean, that is they are now equals, and in
whose
Mozart,
mind are they equals?
Well,
Salieri's.
I think they've met on common ground.
They're on common ground. They're maybe not equals, but they're on common ground.
I think in that moment there is a mutual respect.
Yeah,
maybe
because even Amadeus is like apologizing, and it seems like he doesn't.
We're way ahead of.
I know. But I mean, but like this is directly connected to something that Chuck just said. But like the whole thing is that I mean that is the most like serious you see that character. He's not out of control. He's I mean, it would be like, think of like I don't know. Think of a rock star that has a tendency of being somebody who's out of control, or any famous person who has some sort of I don't know, reputation for being out of control. But probably if you're not in a scenario where that's going to be attention seeking, they're probably kind of pretty thoughtful people, or can be pretty thoughtful if they're intelligent at all.
I have a lot to say about that scene, so maybe we should just save this until it's time.
I was going to say about in general about the performance of Tom Hulse, the laugh, right? Yeah, the laugh is a little over the top. It can get annoying, but he does a lot with that laugh. He conveys a whole range of emotions with variations on how he delivers that laugh, like nervousness, anxiety, joyousness, exuberance, depravity, right?
I won't say what it is, but it makes his last laugh very captivating. Like what is being conveyed here? But we'll talk about that.
I have no doubt that was a huge construction in his working through the role, is being able to take that silliness and do a lot with it. He really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Mozart, or Amadeus, as it's called, is told through the eyes of Salieri, right? He is at the end of life, presumably tries to kill himself. I assume that's what he did. He didn't fall on whatever cut his throat, right?
Right.
And he is brought to a psych hospital to recover. And while he's there, a father of, is that the Italian church? I don't even know. I mean, is he back in Italy? I don't even know where he is.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's in
He's a
Italy.
Catholic priest?
I think he's still in Vienna.
Okay.
But it's a Catholic priest, yeah.
Yeah, a Catholic priest comes to get his confession, basically. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
Yeah, because there is one really important thing that takes him to the psych hospital on top of trying to kill himself. He blurts out, "I murdered," or he basically I killed Mozart.
Yeah.
Which then that is, it's like, okay, now he's going to be, it's like, did he? Or is he just, a raving lunatic that's trying to kill himself?
Well, as we all know from the 1994 classic Last Action Hero, that he killed Mozart. I mean, of course he's the villain. He killed Mozart.
Yeah. That is one of the first things that's like kind of up for debate in the storytelling here. Like, how much did Salieri really have to do with what happened to Mozart?
There's a whole thing about that historically too.
There is, and it's fascinating.
It's so weird because it's like team sports, because it's a rumor that seemed to mostly be proliferated through the Italian and the German schools of music butting heads over who was really better at music, the Germans or it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is nuts.
Shit, I had something I was going to say. I can't remember. Anyway, that's all right. It'll come to me.
It'll come to you.
Well, yeah, and the first character we see in this movie never shows up again. It's the pitcher for the Red Sox, David Price.
Yes.
Vincent Schiavelli.
Yes.
They look so similar. It kills me.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I wanted to eat whatever the fuck they were eating too. It was like a biscuit with some heavy fucking cream that I'm like, let me dip on biscuit.
They're trying to lure him out of his chambers with it's his butler and some other guy who I don't know who Vincent Schiavelli is, like maybe his
carriage driver, maybe.
Yeah, they're trying to lure him out with all of his favorite Italian pastries. Which
is that not the thing
it
that
becomes a thing later in the movie?
Yeah, that he shares with Mozart.
He's all sorts. He's all about them. He's all about the Italian pastries. In fact, before he even meets Mozart, he's drawn to the room with all the pastries in it, right? Because he's like, ooh, and he wants to eat them because that's his one true vice. His one true vice is are sweets. Yeah.
Sweets are his sex because he's deprived himself of that.
Never mind real Salieri, who was married, had lots of children, and a mistress. So never mind all that. That's
exactly. Yeah.
You just ruined the movie for me, Jeff. I thought this was what Salieri was like. But it is like important to the setup of the movie, right? Like Salieri, as he explains to the father, has asked God to be able to speak through him with music, right? Or for God to speak through him through his music, however you're supposed to say that. Yeah. And he gives up all of his earthly pleasures for it. And in doing that, he is expecting God, or what I should say, his first granted wish from God is that his father dies, which frees him up to pursue this passion of his, right? Because his father didn't love music, didn't want him to pursue music. You know, one of those old contemporary dudes that would be like, music is for the whomever, you know, back in the day. Like, you don't do that. We just pray to God and that's it, kind of thing. And his dad dies, which frees Salieri up. He follows music and he ends up in Vienna as the court composer for the emperor.
For the emperor. Yeah.
And he was more or less, as he was coming up, contemporaries with Mozart already. So because he was there to see Mozart as a small child perform, and in a way he was both inspired by, and then throughout the rest of Mozart's life they were contemporaries at that point.
Yeah, and there was a rivalry by all accounts but
there's always going to be. I mean,
but not to this degree. Yeah,
right. I mean,
the rivalry was fairly one-sided, right?
Yeah,
Like Salieri was competing with Mozart. Mozart didn't even know he existed, really.
There is a lot of truth in the fact that, I love that one of my favorite scenes. Honestly, everything that Salieri says in his confession, air quotes, is just beautifully written, and delivered. But when he plays the tunes, he plays a couple of his own tunes in the
beginning.
I got nothing. And then he plays a Mozart piece. It's like, yeah, I know that. And of course he does, because his music has stood the test of time, even in the short term. His has been forgotten in the short term, right?
Which is extremely important to the narrative of this movie and why Salieri ends up where he is in life. Mm-hmm. But we'll talk about that later.
And it's fascinating throughout, like, the love that Salieri has for Mozart's music. It's the man that he can't reconcile. Mm-hmm. He's like, right. I've done everything right. I've sacrificed so much for you, God, but you choose to speak through him.
Why would God
not through me?
Why would God choose an obscene child to be his instrument?
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because he is, and that's how he doesn't reconcile it, or he makes good with himself not reconciling it, is because he believes it's God speaking through Mozart, not Mozart's talent necessarily, right? So he's pissed at God for choosing somebody else.
Well, it's maddening. Kind of, it's the tale of Job, right? I mean, there's a lot of that going on there, where it's like it's this insane jealousy that you point at God instead of, you've blessed somebody else other than me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I mean, that was the very first thing I picked. I was like, oh yeah, he's playing the role of Job.
Mm-hmm. I can see that for sure. What about the first time we see old Mozart, Mr. T.M. Tisch himself?
Oh my gosh, he wants to use those breastises as pillows, and I kind of don't blame him.
I actually remember this scene quite a bit.
It's hard to forget.
Yeah, and especially as a probably 12 or 13-year-old boy. Yeah, that scene very, very well stuck out.
As a 47-year-old boy, yeah, it does.
What's funny about that, though, is we all know that's Mozart in the movie, right? But I don't think that the scene is supposed to play that way, right? Originally, seeing the movie, if you hadn't seen anything in the any previews or whatever of it, I think that scene is supposed to play like this is just some commoner, could be a part of the wait staff, right?
We're supposed to realize it.
There's supposed to be a juxtaposition between what Salieri believes is a true genius and what the true genius is, right? And it's his first disappointment in Mozart, because he's wandering the party looking, because he's playing a game with himself. Can I spot the genius, right? And he's immediately disappointed that it's just this child, essentially, who's just trying to, like, get laid
and coerce his soon-to-be wife to say, "Eat my shit," and like vulgar. He's a vulgar person,
very vulgar. Yeah, I love though that he's speaking. He said everything is that's opposite is true, or something like that, and he's speaking to her backward.
Right,
and it's a kind of an interesting early indication of his genius, because that's really hard to do. It's really hard to think of a phrase and then just say it backward.
Yeah.
Right? Like only a specific type of brain could do that. Because it takes her a minute or two, or a few seconds at least, to suss out what he's saying to her. But he's like just coming at her with backward phrases. He doesn't just practice that shit. Right? No. He's coming up with that on the fly, which is kind of incredible.
Well, it also plays into something that Salieri does find out later when he's seeing his music. That is also a sign of just absolute insane genius.
Yeah, it is. It is. Oh, that's such a great moment. There's so many of those just like breathtaking moments in this movie.
And who is it that Mozart is supposed to be playing for here? He's the chancellor of...
So he is essentially an employee of the Archbishop of Salzburg.
Yeah.
The Archbishop, okay. Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure how all of the European politics went at this point in time, but you definitely, the Catholic Church had like a very strong hold on all of Europe. And you had like the Holy Roman Emperor, who is what is it, Peter II in this?
Whatever he was.
And he's installed in Vienna.
Vienna, yeah, which
right?
is...
And he's technically the ruler of all of Europe. But then any archbishop, cardinal, they're all placed all around Europe as well. And they have just as equal standing in the eyes of the Pope, right? Because the Pope would have been the ultimate power, even over the emperor. So when he says that, that when he lures Mozart away from the Archbishop of Salzburg, it's a political move, right? It's a power play. He does it to get under his skin.
To piss him off. Yeah.
To piss him off, exactly. And then, of course, there's the throwaway line, almost a throwaway line, where it comes up later when he's about to stage the Marriage of Figaro, which is banned by the emperor because it sows division in the classes. And he makes the comment about his sister Antoinette in France is seeing a lot of dissidence.
She's about to she's about to lose her head over it.
She's about to be beheaded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All of Europe is about to fucking change.
Oh yeah, because right around the
Napoleon
corner,
is right on the heels.
Yep. He's ready to wipe it all clean. Now,
and then, of course, concurrently with a lot of this, you have the Revolutionary War in the United States.
Well, yeah, and England is entirely separated from all of this because they've already dumped Catholicism, and
so like just before these events, because I think this takes place in like the 1780s to 1790, early 1790s.
Well, 1791 would have been his death.
Would have been his death. There you go. So it's like the last 10 years of his life, essentially. Yeah. So yeah, you've already had the Revolutionary War, which had just happened. So England has been like tied up with that forever. And then you have
France is
about to go into revolution.
They're getting a lot of inspiration from the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. And
holy history lesson.
That changes the whole face of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Because then Napoleon marches to Russia and takes everything in between.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's really like the end of the height of the power of the Catholic Church in Europe. Yeah. Anyway. It's kind of crazy.
And it's also kind of, you're right at the end.
Time were so formative.
Well, yeah.
and it didn't happen that long ago.
No, not really. Not in the grand scheme of things. And it's also kind of the end of the idea of like, I don't know what the proper term would be, but like, talking about like cities having their own lords and bishops and things like fiefdoms almost, where they're all like kind of centrally, like they're all under the kingdom, but every town may be so much differently ruled. Then all they have to do is make sure that they pay pittance to their emperor or to their king, and they're fine, but they can run things however they want. It's a weird thing that Europe was doing for pretty much up until the dawn of the 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
The end of fiefdom to the beginning of FIFA.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just spilling space here.
Hey, goal. Anyway, so basically, at this point in time, he's got a concert for the main man in Salzburg, and and Salieri has been enticed by the sweets, as has Amadeus, as he's kind of messing around with his landlady's daughter.
Yeah,
and it seems like they've been kind of together for a little bit. Like it seems like this is his regular Saturday night thing. But he has to disengage from his girlfriend because he starts to hear his own music play, because they started without him because he doesn't care about the concert. He just wanted to get laid.
Yeah, so he runs in there. He assumes his position, but afterwards learns that the man of Salzburg is like, "Hey, you embarrassed me here. I'm sending you back to your dad." And Mozart immediately has a reaction to this. He's like, "No. Give me another chance. I'm sorry. Like, please let me stay. I'm just a dumb boy," or however he raises all that basically to be able to stay.
Well, and not only that though, he really sticks it to the Salzburg dude by opening the door and all the people cheering.
Yeah, he hears all the applause, and then he lifts he bows to them, but really he's showing his ass to that dude. I'm like, okay, Mozart, I see you, buddy. Clever girl.
But it's at that point where Mozart is kind of like, I want. Yeah, he's asked. You're right. He asked to be released, and he eventually does. Like the Holy Roman Emperor, is it Peter II? Like,
I've looked and I keep missing
Joseph II. It's Joseph II.
I was going to say Peter didn't seem right, but Joseph, yeah, okay.
Joseph. It's Joseph II. He gets his way, and he lures Mozart to move to Vienna by commissioning an opera.
Yep.
And there's a whole funny scene about what language it should be in. Should it be?
All those traditionalists that are like, it's got to be in Italian. It's a beautiful language. German is way too.
Yeah.
Rough, I don't know how they describe it, but it's rough and guttural is what I was thinking.
But I mean, this is Austria, so it is. Oh boy, is it German?
Yeah.
I mean, it is maybe more. I mean, at this point in time, Germany is not really a thing. Austria is the German power in in Europe at this point. All of Germany is broken up into their little city states. I believe it's still the case in the 1780s, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, but when we meet Jeffrey Jones as the emperor is when I start to kind of lose. Is this a comedy? Is this supposed to be funny? Because even when Jeffrey Jones is delivering like a line of import, he's still Jeffrey Jones.
Honestly, I think he's.
Do you understand what I mean?
He's wildly miscast. I really do.
I do too. Unless the intention was to give that feeling.
I think he is supposed to be thought of as a dullard, I mean, it's like those with power and a lot of say in a lot of people's lives are often portrayed as idiots or silly people in this.
But he's not silly though. He's just Jeffrey Jones. That's what makes him seem silly. Like, I don't know how to describe this better. His character doesn't act goofy at all.
I think there's an important scene where it's like he shows his ass as being not very smart.
Oh, I agree. I don't think he is. He doesn't come off as very smart at all. And I think
I'm more not smart, yes, but silly. He doesn't act silly, is what I'm saying. Not being a smart dude is different than acting silly. Like, I know plenty of very serious people who are very not smart.
Well, sure. I mean, I guess maybe instead of the word silly, I would say he is not as serious as you think he should be in the role that he has.
He is a little bit flighty.
Yeah, like he's like when right before they're going to meet Mozart, he wants to play the tune that Salieri has written.
Yeah.
That's a real goofy scene.
Yeah,
it's
and
really
it is.
Goofy.
It is goofy. Because he's acting like a child about it, right? It's like, oh, I want to play it. I'm good at and he's so non-serious about, like, do you do realize that the guy you employ as being a kind of master musician for you, do you really expect to be able to play that?
This is where this movie suffers its own narrative devices, though, because the feeling you're supposed to get here is that Salieri is being taken away from the one thing that he wanted to do.
Sure.
By his master, right? And the way that they decide to do it is just goofy, right? Like, oh, I want to play it. He could have just been like, no, you're not playing it for him. Somebody else is, or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
No, I just think that that's just self-important, like I'm the boss here, and it's like,
but that's not the purpose of him doing it, is what I'm saying. For the story, it's
right. It's to continuously slap Salieri down. Yeah. But then again, I mean, Salieri, again, he's the narrator of this, right? He's portraying
that's fair.
This moment.
That's fair too.
That's fair.
I mean, so he is now being doubly insulted
he has said some snide things about him as well. Like he has no ear for music, and yeah.
Fair. It's good to remember that, because he is not a reliable narrator, likely.
No.
Yeah. No, because he's completely and totally driven by his insane jealousy of everything that was supposed to be his goes to somebody else.
But nothing is his fault either, and that's why he's so dull throughout the stories, because he can't even show himself in the moments where he's manipulating Mozart.
Yeah,
like he's wearing a mask.
Yeah,
in the story, right?
Yep. He can't. He just can't. He just can't step up to the plate, right?
It's jealousy, right?
Yeah, it is.
And all it is at the end of the day. It's all this bullshit about God. That's not his problem. It's jealousy.
Right. Yeah, it's his own. Yeah. It's his own internal issue, not this. And like the whole thing where it's like, because very soon after that, because then like Mozart gets the job, and then there's going to be a soprano who's going to, who's very interested in getting her next job.
Yeah.
To which Salieri later says he was in love with her, but but the way she's portrayed, you shouldn't be in love with that person. It's very obvious that she's manipulative, or at least she's very thinking for herself in terms of, I want to be the singer.
And Salieri is a little bit naive too. He has the attention of a beautiful, talented woman, right? In that moment.
Right.
And then he's never able to seal the deal, right?
It's just he's inept at these sort of things.
He has the line later where it was in that moment I realized that he'd had her, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and that starts to break his brain, right?
Yeah.
He's like, why not me?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, because like he's even seen later with another singer who he just has zero interest in. She's perfectly fine as a singer, but he almost is like he's like leaning over with his, like propping his hand on
he's eating snacks.
Yeah.
He's eating snacks.
And he's like just kind of beep, beep, boop, boop with like one finger or one hand,
Yeah.
It's like he's so uninterested in her.
Yeah.
Which, it kind of shows you how he thinks of people, right? Like, he thinks he's divinely important. And that it's all taken away from him by, and for crappy reasons or whatever. But yeah.
The opera that he is commissioned to write is the Abduction from the Seraglio, I think is how it's pronounced, maybe. I don't know. I'm the worst person you can rely on for proper pronunciation.
And that's why we're going to have you do this the entire time.
English language, yeah. Right. But
is this about the harem?
But it's yes. So it's decided upon. He wants to do an opera about a Turkish harem. You get the sense that like Turkey was all the fad at this point in time. Like people were.
Well, someone even says it to the girl that shows up in Salieri's office. She says, My hairstylist says everything is going to be Turkey.
Going to be Turkey, yeah.
Well, yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, they are bordering the Austria-Hungarian Empire is bordering the Ottoman Empire. Mm-hmm. It's right next door. It would be like, hey,
is it Istanbul or Constantinople at this time?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But it would be like us saying, hey, Chicago's pretty swell. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right there.
Everything's going to be deep dish soon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's all going to be deep dish
deep
pizza.
dish and stuffed.
um,
So yeah, he's writing the opera about the harem,
yes.
which is a very
And it's decided upon that it will be German, because when he finds out there's a debate over what language it should be, he almost begs for it to be German because he wants that challenge, right? And it's to the horror of the
committee, whatever you want to call them.
well, the one guy is like, I forget his title, but he's the head of the opera in Vienna. He's like the director of the opera, and he's like, no, it has to be in Italian. And finally, it gets decided. Mozart has his way. The emperor is enamored by his idea, his creativity. He wants to lure him to do it, so he agrees that it will be in German.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's kind of a hit, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Salieri has to watch his lady sing,
Right.
to which he says for 10 minutes, and he kind of treats that as being obscene, like almost as if she practically.
Well, he's in love with her.
Well,
He's in
yeah,
love with her.
we talked about that while you'd stepped
Sorry.
away, but but it's almost like the way he talks about it with disgust almost comes across like it's almost as bad as she just fucked him right there on the stage. It's like it comes across as he's disgusted by this
I think
act.
it is that to him. I think
I know,
it is
yeah,
that to him.
But he's, this is going in again to where it's like we're getting a lot of extra layers put on from the narrator himself. That he's treating her now horribly when he realized too late that he already had her.
This is also our first introduction to the idea that the emperor is a bit of an influencer when it comes to what's popular, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's like all over Insta because he gets up on stage and he decides he needs to critique it, right? And he
Too many
can't
notes.
and he says, he turns to the director of the opera and he's like, "What is it? What is it? It's too many notes." And he's like, yes, it's too many notes. And of course, Mozart is horrified at this. It took exactly as many notes as
I require. Yeah, as I require. No more, no less.
And then it turns into a little bit of chaos because Mozart's lady, girlfriend, maybe fiance, is there with her mother, and they come down and they want up on stage, and she's like demanding in this weird moment. It's kind of a weird scene. She's like demanding that he marry her daughter, and the emperor
is like, yeah, do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the emperor's kind of goading him on. Yeah, and it's like, it sounds like a wonderful match.
Why aren't you? And it's like, because
woman.
my father hasn't agreed to it yet. And it's like, well, I'm the emperor. I think you should.
I think you should.
Basically.
And then the landlady, the mother, she has this is actually my absolute favorite moment from Jeffrey Jones in this. She faints. She passes out on stage, and he says, "Well, there it is," and he walks off
and walks away.
Done his work.
So good.
Yeah.
And that's one of those moments like, is this movie a comedy, right? Because that is comedic as all get out. I laughed so loud at that.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is like any good movie could have, should be many different things, right? Like you can have some funny bits in a movie that's deeply serious, and you can have deeply serious moments in movies that are funny.
But it's clear.
No,
that the
you
emperor,
cannot.
It's clear that the emperor's there for laughs.
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah, because I think he's being presented as a dullard.
Yeah, a bit of a buffoon.
The emperor has no clothing in this movie.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean that.
No, yeah, absolutely.
No, it's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's the thought that just because you have power doesn't mean you're smart. Just because you have money doesn't mean you're smart. The only person that I think Salieri presents as being relatively intelligent, there's three people I think he presents in a fair light. He presents, of course, himself, which is not necessarily fair, but he presents himself as intelligent. But I do think he's actually relatively fair to Constance.
Oh, for sure. I think he's the most sympathetic to her.
I think he's absolutely, and I think he thinks she is a perfectly fine person.
Yep.
If not, maybe even a little taken by her. And then I also think he has a great deal of respect for Mozart's father.
And I would argue he does for Mozart
know about
as well. If you didn't say Mozart, yeah.
But I think that evolves. Yeah.
I do agree that he's the father that he wishes he had.
Sure. Because he's the patron of the pianist that he always thought he could be. See, that's
patron of the pianist.
Because Salieri has some daddy issues for sure.
Yes, because he celebrates his death, but also, it is when he says that he realizes that, like later when he realizes what that commander is in the Requiem.
Yeah.
He almost changes his.
Oh, and that was in
it's like a whole flip of what he thinks.
Don Giovanni. That was Don Giovanni.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Don Giovanni.
Yeah.
But it almost
honestly
like
looks like
flips a
metal
switch
as hell,
with him.
right?
It does.
Metal as fuck opera. I want to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I sometimes get things out of order here, but I think at this point is when Mozart is overspending and not accepting work with pupils.
Yes.
Because he doesn't want to do it, but then he is semi-offered the position to teach the emperor's daughter. Is that who the girl on the horse is?
Well, yeah, you're mostly right.
I thought
it's
Emperor's niece,
I think. Yeah, but you're mostly right. Like Salieri has been working behind the scenes to deny Mozart pupils. Like he's been spreading rumors.
He hasn't said that yet, but yes,
shouldn't be around children and stuff. Yeah,
he's basically like, hey guys, this guy's a real groomer. He might as well work for Disney.
Yeah, well, he comes out and says to the emperor like he molested a girl.
Right.
But he does say that he's actively working against him
a little bit later,
financially. But that's the reason why he needs the job so badly, to be the emperor's niece's tutor. Yeah.
Agreed. Narratively, I don't think that Salieri had admitted this in the story yet. But you're right.
Maybe not.
That's all there. But the sticking point in this is that for some reason they need to see Mozart's music in order to approve him, which I'm sure is something that Salieri put in there to prevent him from getting the job. And Mozart's like too proud for that. He's like, you need to see my music? Like, I'm fucking Mozart.
He's like, I don't audition.
I'm Mozart, man. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But this leads to Constance bringing the music to Salieri while he's in the middle of a lesson and having that whole wonderful scene of him looking at the music and be like, these are all originals. He doesn't make copies. And he starts having those thoughts in his head about how he writes everything from his brain to the paper. Go ahead, Jason.
And that's not even the most impressive part. The most impressive part is there are no mistakes.
Right. No mistakes.
It's you're like you said, directly from his brain to paper. He's just transcribing it as he hears it in his mind, and it's like astounding genius, right?
Yeah, and it's mind blowing to a pretty accomplished composer, right? Yeah. Like to a layman person, we'd be like, "Oh, yeah, that's pretty impressive," but this is blowing the mind of a guy who, and granted, Salieri, like the stuff we hear from him, isn't like mind blowing or anything, but he can write music, he can play music, he can teach people music. So, there's something.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say in another real life fact, Salieri did teach one of Mozart's sons.
He did.
So
in real
life,
in real life, yeah. He did.
This movie would work if they were friends, though.
No, no. I mean that's the play that this was based on was absolutely one of those alternative history type of. Hey, it's more fun to think of it like this. So,
let's explain how Mozart got to where he was, because nobody really understands how that happened to him in the first place. But in reality, I mean,
right.
One real quick aside.
Sure.
The play was written by Peter Schaeffer, Do you know who Peter Schaefer's brother was?
I know Peter Schaefer was the musical lead for David Letterman's show.
That's Paul.
That's Schrader.
Oh,
Paul
yeah,
Schrader.
you're right.
Yeah,
First of all, the other big thing that Peter Schaefer wrote was Equus. Very popular.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But his brother, Anthony Schaefer, wrote motherfucking Wicker Man.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I didn't get a chance to say it. I was gonna say, his brother is somebody who's never been in my kitchen.
That's true.
Because it's not an incorrect answer.
No, it is not.
I thank Cliff Clavin for the all-time greatest answer to a
Jeopardy?
question you don't know. Yep.
It was Jeopardy, right? Yeah.
Yep. What are 2 or 3 people who've never been in my kitchen?
That's funny.
And then argue that you're correct.
I mean, he is correct.
Yeah.
That's just not the answer they were looking for.
Right.
Well, y'all know if I can get David Lynch or the Wicker Man into an episode, I'm going to do it.
And I'm going to try to get Dr. Zayas in there. And I've already done that.
You already did. You already did that, so success.
I'm just going to try to get through the episode normally.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but Salieri
every week
resorts to some really terrible shit here. He basically tells Constance, like, hey, there's a price for giving Wolfie the job.
Yeah.
He doesn't come out and name it, but it's obviously, you're going to come here tonight, you're going to have sex with me, and then I will help your husband.
Real quick, do we all watch the director's cut?
I did.
I did.
Okay. I don't know how much of that is in the theatrical.
I don't
Because when she comes back,
that absolutely is not, because it was a PG-rated movie.
Not.
Yeah.
Right. Because she gets naked in front of him and he dismisses her. That was definitely not in the PG-rated version I watched in public school in 7th grade.
What's cool about that is that it works either way, right? Like if she doesn't show up, if it's cut, you assume she doesn't show up,
right?
And it still works.
Yeah, it does.
Well,
right.
My guess is it maybe cuts relatively quickly after he realizes these are the originals, that they were, when it goes back to him talking about how there was no mistakes, then it just goes on.
Yeah,
because it probably cuts to Mozart showing up, pleading his case.
Yep,
it's probably what it does. Yeah. That would be my guess, and that would make perfect narrative sense. Mm-hmm.
Either
Salieri has a great
pleading his case, or he shows up at the place with all the dogs, and he's gotten the job. Yeah.
That might have been cut too. I don't know if that was in the original theatrical. That guy, by the way,
I know that guy. He's in Coen Brothers movies, I'm pretty sure.
Well, his name. Oh my God! Hold on.
Baron Munchausen.
It's Kenneth McMillan. He's cast as Michael Schlumberger. He is a director's cut. It actually puts it right by his character.
There, yeah.
Everything with him is director's cut, and that is the Baron Harkonnen. I did it. I got a twofer, guys. I got a twofer. That's the Baron Harkonnen in David Lynch's Dune. Yep, twofer.
Nice. Dang. I got to figure out a way to make this a crisis then.
I gotta start
the Salieri and Mozart of this show is starting to face off against each other.
Oh man, that's so good. Yeah, it's actually nice. They tell you which ones are director's cut, because his second student, who he was disinterested in, that's director's cut. Salieri.
Oh yeah.
I'm not quite sure who Cassie Stewart and Rita Zoe are.
No, well, Gertrude would have been that Schlumberger, so that's all related to that scene. Yeah.
Yep, you're right. It is all related to that scene with the daughter. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Cool. So anyway, he asks for help, right?
Wait, I wanted to say one line, because after Constance leaves, Salieri, they cut back to the father, and Salieri has this great line. He's like, "There's no God of mercy, Father, just a God of torture." I'm like, damn, that hits, man. That hits after he just did that to Constance. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
No, I was trying to find our place. I think this is too.
This is around when Dad shows up.
It is around the time when Dad shows up. But what is the impetus for Salieri when he decides that he's going to, he says, I will hinder and harm your angel. And he puts the cross in the fire. What was the last straw for him?
Why does he do that?
When he decides he's going to actively work against Mozart in every way. It's not long after he reads the music.
I think it is that. I think it's after Constance leaves and he says there is no God of mercy, Father, just a God of torture. And then he basically turns away from God and burns the cross and says, now I'm just going to make Mozart's life a living hell. That's pretty much it. I think it is that Constance. I don't know how that would play in the other movie.
I think so,
like the non-director's cut. I would be interested to know how he arrives at that. But yes,
because you're right. His father shows up at this point. Yeah.
Mozart had gone and begged for help from Salieri. He says he'll go talk to the emperor, which he fucking won't.
Right.
And then he goes home, and his dad is at the top of the steps. And he's so juvenile with his dad, Mozart. So he's like, Papa. No, Papa, you come in, you stay, Papa.
Well, his dad's constantly looking like fucking death. I mean,
he is kind of ominous. He's very ominous figure, even more ominous than Salieri at most points.
Oh yeah, because I mean, Salieri is just a jealous little bitch. I mean, while yes, he does have the ability to hurt Mozart, he can't end Mozart.
Right. And a lot of these scenes play out pretty earnestly. Like whenever Salieri doesn't have a purview of what is actually happening, there's no I don't want to say weirdness, but his view isn't impinging on what's happening in the scenes. Like Constance is she has a backbone with Mozart's father, and Mozart is the child instead of the, what do you want to call it, the crazy teen that Salieri always sees. It's pretty interesting stuff.
It's almost like this is, I mean, in a way, he's kind of portraying these characters again, the father is the father he wanted to have. Constance is kind of a strong, supportive person that he doesn't have, that he always wants, or that he
couldn't bring himself to defile
exactly
like he planned.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I think he has an absolute respect for her that does, in a way, come off as he's taken by her.
Well, his respect was greater for her than his animosity for Mozart was. Otherwise, he would have done it to take Mozart out, right? Yep. He has a problem finishing. I don't mean that in a sexual sense, but Salieri is always on the doorstep of completing what he wants, but he can't take anything across the finish line.
It's like his own Catholic guilt trips him up. At the stumbling, he stumbles at the finish line.
Yeah. But this is my favorite shit in this whole movie is when Mozart's like, all right, Dad, we're going dancing.
Oh my God.
Going dancing.
It's fucking party time.
It's go to the party. And I don't know how you just find a party like this.
It's Vienna. I'm sure it's everywhere.
Vienna, I guess. Yeah. And it's just
they probably had invites to 30
there's always a Babylon style party happening.
Yeah. Well,
with Cupids riding roasted.
This is very Eyes Wide Shut.
Roasted pigs or whatever it is.
It's Eyes Wide Shut, and Babylon had a baby.
Yeah. Pre both of those, obviously. Right. But it reminded me of both.
But then they also said though that Vienna was that is the cultural center of Europe.
Yeah.
More so than Paris, more so. Yeah. I mean, this is, if you can make it there,
You can make it anywhere.
You can make it anywhere. But
well, that's where Mozart wanted to go to take over Europe, right?
Yep.
Like, I have to go to Vienna. I have to become popular. It was like the Beatles coming to the Ed Sullivan Show. That's what Vienna was. It was the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yep.
There. All right.
Yep. And then
I said it in a way I can understand it.
Yeah. No, I'm there with you. And debauchery is going to be there waiting for them.
But my God, the horse hat that Mozart is wearing.
Yes.
The fucking double-sided mask, which leads to my favorite part of this entire movie. So they do their dancing, and then there's a game where if you lose the game, you're given a penance within, the confines of whatever this party is. And Mozart do you know what the first guy had to do?
They call
it's
it
a penalty. Penalty. Thank you. Do you know what the first guy had to do? What his penalty was? Like our example of what
I'm
penalty
sure it had
is?
something to do with his dick out. I'm positive.
I don't remember.
I don't know, but I'm sure.
One lady had to show her legs to everybody.
She had to show her legs. Yeah.
Yes, that's the one I remember. But Mozart loses, and he's like, "Dad, you have to get." Or no, like while it's happening, this is where before he even gets his penalty, Mozart's having a blast.
Yeah,
And
this is when the
lady shows her legs.
Yeah.
And he looks at his dad, and it's his mask, and it's disapproving face. And he's like, oh. And then his dad turns around because he had been facing the other way, and he's got happy face. Mozart's like, oh. and then dad lifts the mask, and he's frowning underneath it.
He's got the frowny face.
Yes. Like, that is fucking brilliant.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Oh my God.
It's great. And then, of course, he devolves into a child when
I want a penalty. You must give me a penalty.
You must give me a penalty. And
right.
and his father's just like, I'm leaving. And
he's like fucking Veruca Salt.
Yeah.
And
I want a penalty now.
Yeah.
But he does have to do his penalty, which is to play piano in the style of some other composer first.
I think the first one was it Strauss? Is that the
It might have been Strauss.
Well, he's the one who's like, oh, I don't like him.
Yeah,
so
no, not him. He's boring. Well, no, he does Strauss. And then
Handel was one of them.
And that one he declines, I think. And in the background, Salieri is walking around behind a mask, and then someone's like, play Salieri.
Yeah.
And he sits down at the
that
piano.
Sounds like F. Murray Abraham. He goes, oh, Salieri. Now that's a challenge, which gives Salieri a little bit. He stands
he
up
raises up a little bit.
Yeah,
he raises up a little bit.
But then he starts playing like an idiot.
Yeah.
And then he
making grumpy faces and
and
So
everybody starts laughing. And then then he lifts his coattails and he farts.
We didn't mention, I don't think anyway, the scene when Salieri composed the welcome for Mozart that we did talk about. The emperor wanted to play it, but we didn't talk about when
when Mozart
plays it. He hands it to Mozart. So, well, this is yours, and he was like, "Oh, thank you," but I already have it in my head.
Yeah, I don't need it.
And they were like, "Really? We would like a demonstration of that.
Go ahead and play it.
Go ahead and play it." And he sits down at the harpsichord, and he puts all sorts of variations on it. He's like, well, this part really doesn't work, does it? And he makes it better. And all to like the embarrassment of Salieri. This is really his first embarrassment at the hands of Mozart. Yeah.
Yeah. He so after the whole thing with the party, that's when you get the line of, oh, it wasn't the audience that was laughing at me.
It was God.
Yeah. And this is when you realize there is no going back for Salieri.
No.
I mean, he is, for somebody who's very clearly very religious, yeah, he can be mad at God, but now he thinks God is personally messing with him.
And this is when he decides to hire a young girl to clean.
Cynthia Nixon.
Yep.
Yeah, Cynthia Nixon. I was like, oh shit, Sex and the City girl.
Yeah. And she is so, like, you feel so bad for her.
Yeah.
Because, like, she has to see some shit. Like, at one point, she's bawling her eyes out. It's like, I won't go back. She
doesn't want to do what she's doing.
Right.
She's also in a situation that's bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, yeah, she's a pawn in somebody's jealous game. That's a terrible thing to be.
And
it's like being somebody's kid.
The main reason why he hires her, Salieri hires the spy,
To find out what he's working on.
Because he wants to find out what he's working on. Because he there's something that he's working on, because he's been very coy about it. He's like, it's going to save all of my fortunes. Like, this is the one. This is my
Mr. Holland's Opus.
Maybe, yeah, sure.
I'm going to use all the bad.
I was trying to think of a classic rock album. I don't know why. But this is the one. It's going to make me famous all across Europe, right? And it's the Marriage of Figaro is what he's working on.
They didn't even do the Figaro part in this movie, which was weird to me. Figaro.
But isn't but I mean, I guess, but because I was kind of wondering that too, but I think the whole point was for him to basically try to kind of show his stuff by saying, we're going to have consistently adding on people who are singing for like,
that's pretty cool.
Like 20 minutes or whatever, like an unbelievable amount of time to sustain.
How many times do you think I could do it? Double it.
Yeah.
They're like 6 minutes. He's like 20. He's like, you don't want to play the guessing game with them anymore.
The reason why he's making this pitch, and he's making this pitch to the emperor, because the emperor has banned this play.
And Salieri figured it out from the girl and brought it to the emperor.
I can get him in trouble with the emperor.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to tattle to daddy. Yeah.
She brought him in. Cynthia Nixon brought him into the house, and that's when he finds and it's like, this is the Marriage of Figaro. We can't do this.
We can't do it. It's banned, and it's banned because this is a play that has caused dissonance. It
caused his sister to lose her head.
It causes his sister to lose her head. Yeah, exactly right.
Well,
I'm just trying to be
subversive.
It is sympathetic to the common man against the monarchy and the aristocracy.
Yeah, and it's subversive as all get.
It's art,
very subversive. But his point is that I'm gonna. It's not gonna be political. My version isn't political. It's really a showcase for his musical talent, right?
It starts with a guy on his knees, not for any nefarious purposes. He's measuring where his bed will go. I fucking love that. Yeah. And then they show the guy on the ground. Like, he's won his argument. They show the guy on the ground measuring his boat.
His wedding bed. Yeah.
His bed. And this is the part where the director is actually directing him, and they take out his musical number because the emperor doesn't allow ballets.
Yeah.
And the emperor comes in. They have to work
around that. Yeah.
The emperor comes in while they're doing this scene without the music. There's just a bunch of people tapping around.
He's like, what's going on here? He's looking around, and the director of the opera is like, well, this is, according to your decree of no ballet. But he's like, and he looks at Salieri. He's like, "Do you like this?" and he turns back and he's watching it. He's like, "I understand, but just look at them. It's ridiculous." So I kind of like it. Like he kind of realizes that maybe he's been ridiculous, and he's like, "All right, come on, if we're gonna do this thing, we got to do it with music and dancing.
We got to do the whole thing. We got to do the whole shebang."
And of course, Mozart is watching this whole thing go down. Like it's the best thing ever, and he thinks that it's Salieri who has influenced on his behalf because Salieri said he would, but Salieri didn't do shit. It just all happened organically in Mozart's favor. Yeah.
Did you guys ever get the sense? Because I didn't watch this movie in a long time, so remembering all the narrative beats is tough. But for a big stretch in that, maybe second hour, I guess, it felt like Mozart was going behind Salieri's back and had people informing him and helping. Like the emperor showing up seemed too circumstantial, like to have been just by chance, right? Like it felt like Mozart knew.
I don't think so. I think that my take is that Mozart thought his only friend was Salieri.
No, yeah. I agree with that now, but during the watching of the movie, like before that last hour, like cements that it's not that. I was like, does Mozart know what's going on? It felt like that.
I kind of feel like
I didn't give him that much credit at all.
Yeah, okay. I think he's just kind of. It's one of those things where he's not just good; he's also lucky, and that's something that Salieri cannot defeat.
Right.
I mean, you can maybe eventually ruin somebody with talent. You can sometimes make somebody unlucky. but to have to go up against somebody who is both talented and lucky, you're fucked.
Yeah,
or at
he's
least
gonna
that's
have
how
to
he's
destroy.
seeing it. Yeah.
He's gonna have to destroy himself. Is the only way Salieri
Or
wins.
physically destroy.
That's what I mean.
Well, I mean, like
Mozart
Salieri
is
could
going to-
stab him. You know what I mean? It's like,
that's not
you
going to
could do
work
that.
for
That's not going to work for Salieri. But yeah, it's like he's got to leave it to yeah, you're right, to Mozart drinking himself basically to death.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, everybody.
Which he technically doesn't. I mean, it's a real illness, but he is wildly all over the place. Yeah.
It's like, well, look at them. Let me see the scene with the music.
So Mozart does win that, and at this point, Salieri's kind of like, well, it doesn't matter what I do. Mozart is going to get his shit to play. I need to figure out a way to keep it from running, like in perpetuity.
He gets lucky. Salieri gets lucky.
Yeah,
because he gets a yawn. From
one yawn, it's hilarious.
Yeah, 3 yawns.
If it was 4 yawns,
3 yawns, it's dead in the water right away. 2 yawns, you would get maybe a week, but 1 yawn, it's slow death.
Yeah, he's like, maybe
you get a month,
10, 12 performances.
But it's going to be sparsely attended. So yeah, here we go again. The emperor being all up in the instas. But
of course, Mozart asks, is this the line? Oh no, now you've got Salieri, because Mozart was convinced this was going to be the greatest opera ever written.
Yep.
Right. But now Salieri has his opera, and it debuts, and the emperor declares it the greatest opera ever written, and Salieri asks Mozart what he thinks of it, and Mozart says, I never knew that music like that is possible.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's even like there's almost even a sense that Salieri is even surprised, like that. It's like, wait, really? Well, what did you think, Mozart? It's like he does.
This is where I think they're setting up Salieri too. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. No, because I kind of see where you're going with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like they're setting up like the emperor never would have said this to Salieri. Like either it's a false narrative or maybe he did it, but it felt like everyone was trying to set Salieri up on a pedestal for a fall.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it felt like.
Almost to get him to fall so that they can just hire Mozart.
Or something, yeah.
Something.
But no, I mean, I guess maybe this actually happened, or maybe it's just Salieri's telling of it. But yeah, it didn't feel natural at the moment. So I thought something was off.
But so there's one thing we kind of went past. I also that the opera in which the emperor yawned at was a 4-hour opera. Come on now.
Yeah.
It's like, how are you not?
I'm going to yawn.
I'm going to yawn too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might go to the bathroom like 67 times during that stretch.
You've already gone 3 times in this episode. No.
Once, but yeah. I mean, it could be 3 if I was.
But
I think the opera that Salieri wrote was the Danaids.
Is it still popular?
5-act tragedy lyrique based on an ancient Greek legend.
Huh. I don't know, but
go ahead.
No, the other thing I wanted to bring up earlier, when we meet all the people in the emperor's court, first of all, obviously, this is a wiggy movie. Very, very wiggy.
Yes.
But the one guy who doesn't wear a wig is the guy you'd expect.
Had 3 heads.
They're trying on all sorts of different, and they all look like 80s pop star hair. But anyway, the one guy who doesn't wear a wig is the one guy that should have been wearing a wig because he was pretty bald. What was up with that? Come on. What are we doing here? There's a guy.
I don't think you're allowed to wear a wig if you're bald. It's like false representation.
Well, Salieri doesn't wear a wig.
Yes, he does.
Is that a wig? Because it looks very natural.
It is. Because at one point he's got really short hair.
Oh, I missed that.
there
It's all
are a
very
few
natural.
scenes.
It's not flamboyant at all. It's
No,
like,
no, it's all very, very conservative, which
Yeah.
would match his kind of
yeah,
the way he lives. You know,
right.
he's very pious. He's very, but yeah, he does a couple of times
And has
take it
an
off and then
altar
like rub
in his apartment.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
like, yeah, there's one of the scenes early on after you first see him back in that time. He does take off the wig and he kind of rubs his, but it's really, really short. Whereas that does have a little ponytail at the end of it.
Yep. So Salieri has a success here, and then something very unfortunate happens for Mozart.
Yes, his dad dies.
His dad dies. Thanks. I was gonna say that. No, I'm joking.
Door Thunder.
But that's when I think Mozart starts writing Black Aria after his dad dies. Is
It's
that
Don Giovanni.
Don Giovanni?
I love the music.
It is a
cues.
Black Aria called Don Giovanni, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Aria.
Aria. Sorry,
Aria.
my bad.
I love the music cues with the portrait of his father in their
Oh
apartment.
my God, they
The
go
way
to
that-
it so often.
It's wonderful. It's so good.
I love
He's
how
very
grumpy.
stern looking
Yeah.
and grumpy.
So
yeah.
grumpy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's sitcom-y almost, like the way they use that
Yeah.
painting.
It's hilarious.
We
Um,
also we didn't talk about the parody opera real quick that Kenny Baker rides in on and starts singing.
I don't think we're there yet.
I thought that was before his father died.
Isn't that with the black double dude? That one?
I think that's next.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Well,
that's
I think there are two scenes with the vaudeville people.
Oh, the first one?
There's the first one is I thought it was a parody of either the failed opera that Mozart had, but he's just there with his wife and kid.
Well,
and-
is that the one where they're like crashing through the paper walls?
Yeah,
it's
and
a
it's-
great scene. I think that's later.
I thought that was before his dad died, and then because afterwards, after his dad dies, that's when they were like, we can really, like, she's like, you need to work at this place because you're not getting money otherwise, and there's
Maybe.
nobody to go to get help from. Because
That's
then they go
possible, because
back, and then Salieri follows him
I know that
there.
he's writing a play or an opera, like a play or whatever, for vaudeville.
Yeah.
At the same time that he's writing Requiem for Salieri.
Yeah,
But-
those
things are both happening after
at
his
the
dad
same
dies.
right,
Yeah.
and that's at the same time. Before all of that, that's when we get the little the little Kenny Baker coming in and,
Yeah.
and sending stuff out through the back of the horse.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty funny. That whole production looked awesome, by the way.
Yeah, it's like
I thought
screw your
his
stuff.
dad died
Yes.
before any of the vaudeville stuff happened, but
Maybe it's right, but I thought he was still.
It doesn't matter terribly much.
He was pretty
It's still a
jovial.
cool scene.
Yeah, but like,
what's important?
I
What's
love
important is Don Giovanni.
Yeah,
because Salieri goes to see Don Giovanni, and he said it, but with his influence, he made sure it only played 5 times, but he went to every performance in secret. He was like astounded by it, but he also saw, what did he say? I began to see a way I could finally triumph over God, right? And it was using the specter of his father against him. And that's where he hatches the plan to have him write his own Requiem Mass. And then what his plan is to have Mozart write his own Requiem Mass, not knowing it's for him. It's a commission by a masked man who comes to his door dressed like his father at the costume party.
yeah. He even
with,
says that
with
it
the
takes.
Janus-faced head.
Yeah, he even says that it took time to get the death mask.
Yeah.
You know, that he had to. He was like really proud of the work he put into this.
And he's going to have Mozart write this Requiem. He's going to then claim it as his own and triumphantly perform it for Mozart at his funeral mass. It's like, holy hell. The only thing he hasn't figured out is how he's going to actually dispatch of Mozart, right?
But then
it
that's
turns
later.
out writing this damn thing is what does
It's
it.
killing him. Yeah.
It's
And he and he's there at the vaudevillian performance when he collapses,
Yes.
And he's quick to his feet. He's like, hey, we gotta get him home. You pick him up. Let's get him in the let's get him in the carriage and get him home. Also during this time, Constance is fed up with Wolfie.
Yeah.
So she decides to go back to Salzburg. His mother-in-law comes to fucking to ball him out over it, and that's when he sees her yelling at him as if she's performing an opera too.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And it like inspires him.
Yes, to write that next vaudevillian thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that's when it goes right to that vaudevillian performance where he's actually he's a pretty big hit there.
That actually might be the one with the dude riding the horse. Is that one that is inspired by?
No, the one with the horse and everything. He and Constance and the son is watching it because later after the show, he's like, my son likes the little people, or what?
Yep, you're right.
But yeah, so like he ends up becoming a pretty big hit in the vaudeville, which, to be honest with you, I'd 100% rather go to a vaudeville show because that emperor stuffy business, not into it.
But Mozart was into the finer things, and he liked to spend money, which means vaudeville wasn't really going to cut it for him.
Yeah,
well, he gets a pretty big sack of cash at the end.
He had a lot of cash, and his wife even said to Salieri, he spends it faster than we can make it.
Yeah.
However, she is rather impressed, or well, at least the kid is, with all the money that's in his bed at the very end. But that's and that was the last bit that was brought by his buddy. But
yeah,
which Salieri totally is like, yeah, the masked man gave me this to give to you.
Wait, are we talking about the scene now all of a sudden?
No, I was just anyway. But he is doing well. I mean, the vaudevillian place is packed. And so, it's like when you saw Don Giovanni, that was not a successful performance. It's like when he finishes the last song, it's just kind of a spattering of clapping and, but like the vaudevillian place almost is his energy.
Yeah. That last, play is Magic Flute, which is awesome. I've seen that performed live. It's so good.
But Mozart is one of those talents that was long ahead of his time, too. Like, he was making music people were not ready for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like
he's Chuck Berry in Back to the Future.
Yeah,
sorry.
Right.
I'm continuing my...
your pop culture reference?
Your kids are going to love it.
Yeah, you may not be ready for this, but your kids are going to love
it. But no, I mean, like he is. I mean, this was pretty common back then. It's like Shakespeare wasn't mass. I mean,
genius is recognized later.
I mean, like Shakespeare was big locally, right? Like you would go to the Globe to see a Shakespeare. Like you would, if you're in Vienna and Mozart is performing, you'd probably go see a Mozart show.
Right.
But it wasn't widespread. It wasn't, the genius came later. And
he didn't take over Europe until after he died, basically.
Right.
But yeah.
It's not like pop music or pop culture today where it's like it's instant and it could be for a very brief period of time or it could be like the Beatles for forever, but you don't know what it's going to be, but it's the world knows it's popular now.
Right. So what happens next? One of you gentlemen want to talk about it?
Well, I mean, this is sort of the end of the movie. It's the big scene where Salieri needs Mozart to finish Requiem, and Mozart is in no condition to do so
because he's crashed at one of his vaudeville performances.
Yeah, and he's been taken home, and he's just all kinds of in bad shape. But Salieri
should we preface this slightly? I'm sorry, because we didn't really cover that. I guess we did. The commissioning by this guy who keeps showing up at the door, asking him if he's writing his mass for himself. It's going on for a long time.
He keeps wanting to avoid the door, tell him I need another 2 weeks. I need money now, but I need another 2 weeks.
It's important to this scene here.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
But Salieri sees that Mozart doesn't have much time left, and if he's going to finish his master plan, he needs to help Mozart complete Requiem. So he offers to take dictation for Mozart, and it's awesome. It's Mozart stating everything that's in his head to Salieri, and Salieri can't keep up. It's like, you go too fast. You go too fast. It's like, do you have it? Do you have it?
Do you have it?
Let me see. And then going back and forth, and him like talking in all sorts of musical terms.
And he's kind of teaching Salieri some things too. Like he's like, because when he's saying it's like, do this, and he's like, wait, I'm not getting, I don't. Yeah. And then it like something clicks. He's like, I see. I see what you're doing with this, and
because he can't hear it like Mozart can hear it, right? Yeah. And then he starts to, you're right. It does start to click, and he starts to hear it too, but he's just a little bit behind.
Yeah.
And that's why I was asking earlier when you said they were equals. I'm like, no, they're not, because even at Mozart's dying breath, he is better than Salieri.
I think like what I was just like equal in terms of like respect at this point.
There's a mutual respect because the mutual respect that Mozart has for Salieri in that moment is he doesn't obviously understand the intent here. And he says, I feel like such a fool.
Yeah.
Forgive me. I never thought you cared much for me or my music or my work. And to that, it really kind of like undercuts all of Salieri's intent, all of his ill will. It's what drives him mad, right? Is that in Mozart's dying moments, he forgives Salieri.
Well, and he asks for forgiveness.
He asks for forgiveness, right? Yes. Yeah. Yes. And Salieri is like,
there's a real person there now.
He doesn't know what to do with it. Yeah. Because all the weight of his jealousy has come crashing down on him.
Yeah.
Yep.
But he's still going to complete his plan, and it's unclear if he wants to do it for Mozart or himself. Until we get to the end of the movie, we know it's still himself. He's willing to let Mozart die if he gets this thing written.
Yeah, but that's taken away from him.
Oh, not by Mozart, by his wife.
By his wife, right?
Yes.
Yeah, her name.
I'm just talking about what he's willing. Yeah,
well,
what he's willing to do.
To me, I think it's somewhat unclear.
That's what I'm saying. You're unsure.
Yeah, because part of it is I want to see this through for him, but you're not sure. You're not sure if until it's finally taken away from him. He has no recourse at that point. He can't claim it as his own. But he could never have claimed it as his own anyway. Constance was always going to be there. And she knows the damage that this has done.
Hence her name, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. She's the constant, yes.
Well, she returns too, kind of almost like she's called back.
Yes.
She thinks something's not right.
Yeah, she's courting somebody, or she's being courted by somebody else back in Salzburg. And she's like, no, this isn't right. I have to go back. I have to go right now. And she goes all night back to Vienna.
I have to say this because movie construction, cool moment here. The stuff that they are writing becomes her travel home music.
Yeah.
Yep.
As he's dictating it to her, to Salieri, it's being played in its full form for her coming home. I'm like, that is fucking awesome.
And he's dying, right?
Yeah.
Is
it Lacrimosa? I think it's Lacrimosa.
He's writing his death mass in his last breath, right? Like that's about as
he's
romantic,
writing himself
as romantic as it gets. Yeah.
Yeah, because she comes home and she's like, what's this? No. And it's like, this is no. You
I don't trust you.
First of all, why are you here?
First of all, fuck you.
You beat cheeks. And then two, I'm putting this away and locking it up. And it's into a clear thing where he can see it but can't get to it.
Yeah.
Right. Unless he wants to break the glass.
But like
that's not something Salieri can do. But yes, you're right. Symbolically, it's great. He can see it, but he can't touch it. Yeah.
Yeah. And not only can he not touch it, he has been writing it. So it's like that on top of that, he has been composing it with Mozart, and it's still being taken out, it's still behind a barrier that he can't get to. And then he dies, and it is true, he was buried in a potter's grave.
Okay, so there is a misconception there. I read he was buried in a common grave. A common grave does not mean a mass grave, which is what they depict in the movie.
Right.
A common grave would have been a grave that you would only guaranteed burial for 10 years, and then you would be removed. Like you have to pay to have a permanent internment.
Oh my God! Imagine having that fucking job of being the guy who has to dig up the.
Yes, to make room for someone else. Yeah.
Did you guys know that if you walked up to Mozart's burial area now and put your ear up to his gravestone, you can hear his music playing backwards?
What?
Did you know that?
Where did you hear this?
Well, he's decomposing.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, you would have won that. You would have won the dad joke competition.
Yes, Sarah told me that joke right at the end of the movie today, and I had to share it.
That's
Sorry.
fantastic. Well done, Sarah. That's fantastic.
And so you've been listening to Film Seizure.
Like the first, it plays into the beginning of the movie too. Where
the eat my shit. Yeah,
it's wonderful. That's wonderful. Oh, that's good.
Sorry for derailing that, but I had to get that in. But so Mozart basically dies with his son playing with his money and his wife arguing with Salieri. So the people are there, but they're not by his side.
No.
Right? Which is very kind of tragic. I don't know if that's what the intention is, but I'm like, this is so sad. These people are in the room with him as he dies, but none of them are paying attention to him.
Yeah, it's that is I mean, it's like he's the tool of these.
He's the instrument of God. He's the instrument of Salieri. And I don't believe Constance feels that way about him.
No, but she's being distracted by the villain, of the tale. Yeah, the villain of the tale. In reality, the funeral was attended by Salieri and some of the other officials. I mean, in truth, Salieri and Mozart were friends, but it is a lot more fun to be
I'll never
this way.
believe that. Yes.
Right. Salieri does go on to teach. I think it's
how many kids does Mozart actually have?
Well, he and Constance had
4.
I think it was 8, but only 2 lived past.
Oh, yes, you're right.
infancy.
Only 2 lived past infancy.
6. Yeah. I'm sorry, 6, but only Carl Thomas and Franz Xavier.
Yeah.
And it was Franz Xavier that Salieri taught.
Yeah.
FXM.
Yep. Well, Franz Xavier Wolfgang Mozart.
I like one of Salieri's last comments to the priest.
Oh, I know which one it is.
I am the patron saint of mediocrities. I am their champion.
Yep.
I will speak to them for you, Father. Or I will speak to them for you, Father. That's what he says.
Yes, that's wonderful. It's like
and every night at bedtime, I do say my prayers to the patron saint of mediocrities.
It's like Saint Salieri.
Yeah, Saint Salieri. Yeah, I mean, he has been there for me all my life.
But this is where, also in that scene where he makes that quote, he also talks about the fact that while he is dying, right? Not while Mozart is dying, but Salieri is slowly dying, 32 years. He has seen all of his contributions dissipate into nothing, and Mozart's music is
more
growing.
Popular than ever. It's growing,
more popular than ever, and that is what really drives him crazy.
Yeah,
and he's still struggling with that because I think he wants more of Mozart. Right? Yeah. He wants more of what Mozart gave the world, the voice of God or the music of God, whatever you want to call it. Like that's what he's struggling with. His lack of popularity and his loss of Mozart's music.
Yeah. Ultimately, he loved Mozart's music. Loved it.
Yeah.
He wanted it to be his music.
Yep. So that does speak a little bit to his like understanding of art and understanding of music being he knew it was genius at the time,
Oh yeah.
but nobody else really did.
And one of his great sins was suppressing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Now,
Yeah.
here is real life aftermath of Mozart's death. And the reason why the end of this movie could be possible. So after Mozart died, Constance Mozart was able to secure a pension from the emperor so that she could survive. But she became an exceptionally good businesswoman. She started organizing concerts for her deceased husband's music, making it
Awesome.
popular, and basically was able to live in quite a bit of comfort for the rest
What
of
a
her
badass.
life. She was 80 when she died. That's how comfortable she
Damn.
was. She did remarry later, and like when she was 40, but she did live to be 80. That's insane at that time.
It is insane. One thing I want to add to her, like, I really like her character in this, and I like the way she was treated as a woman. She had power. She wasn't just Mozart's wife.
She wasn't
even
a
in
nag.
the story.
Yeah.
Right. She was smart. She wanted what was best for them. She tried to do, like, get Wolfgang to do what was best for them. And if he wouldn't do it, she would do it.
Yep.
Like, it's just a good, strong woman character in an 80s movie. Pretty cool.
Yep.
What about oh, go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say some interesting alternate casting. Kenneth Branagh apparently was one of the finalists for Mozart,
Ooh, I would have liked that.
but
Yep.
but Forman decided to go with an American cast. Tim Curry played Mozart in the stage play, and was eventually replaced by Mark Hamill.
Nice.
So
Wild.
Dr. Zayas.
I could totally see Tim Curry in this role.
Yeah, Curry, and Hamill too. I could see it. That's interesting.
Well,
and then our girl Meg Tilly was
Yeah.
originally cast as Constance, but
Yeah.
tore a ligament
he
in her
was
leg
looking-
the day before shooting started and had to drop out. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, I was reading about that too, because there was a competition between Elizabeth Barrage, who won the role, and who was the other? There was somebody else who was up for it. But the other girl was dismissed because she was too pretty to be a landlady's daughter. And it was like, but Elizabeth Barrage is very pretty
Gorgeous
too.
in this,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like, that's insane.
Gorgeous in this.
But anyway,
She does look kind of like, you get the commonness from her.
sure. I mean, she's the girl next door, kind of, right? I mean, like, it just turns out that
If you look
her
at the
mom runs
portrait-
your fucking apartment.
If you look at the portrait of Constance Mozart, it's pretty good casting.
It is, yeah.
What about the last laugh?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Is it just
the last laugh? I mean,
I think that's what it's going for, but there is a hint of sorrow in it to me, like one of the sorrow laughs. I'm wondering if you could trace it back to the point in the movie where he laughed at her, if it was re-recorded to see what was happening at the time. But it's a little bit hokey, right? A little bit on the nose, but I kind of like it.
yeah.
It's what I mean. Maybe it's kind of signifying. It's like this is all that Salieri can hear is being laughed at from beyond.
Yeah, I mean Mozart had the last laugh
Yeah.
on Salieri.
It is the
for sure.
literal last laugh. Yeah, I don't think it's any more than that. But it's good. Like it works really well.
It's hokey though, is it not? But it works in this movie.
But the movie can be hokey at times. You know.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I think I wanted this movie to be more serious than it is. I don't know why. I mean, I didn't even have a lot of talk about this in the beginning.
Well,
when you
that's
guys
Immortal
were.
Beloved. If you want serious, watch Immortal Beloved.
I want to watch Immortal Beloved. I fucking love that movie. But this is really good. I'm kind of surprised it got Best Picture though, because you guys know I don't keep up on those things a lot. But it's really good.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, like I said, growing up, this was the quintessential Best Picture movie. You know,
Which is interesting to me. Like, I
well,
don't have that brain part of me that like thinks about that. You know,
Jeff, you were going to say that it wasn't very successful. What's that about?
Okay, so when now it was made for $18 million. Right.
Yeah.
It did, but you got back then.
$90 million wasn't a lot of money back then.
Well, no, but it was back then.
It was a lot.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
But the thing, the way that that movies used to be released with Oscar type of stuff. This was originally released in September. It was fairly poor performing until the Oscars.
All right, so it gained steam.
It got the buzz of the Oscars.
Right.
Made money.
This was so this was something that was put into the Wikipedia. So along with The English Patient, The Hurt Locker, The Artist, and Birdman, those Amadeus and those other four are the only Best Picture winners to never enter the weekend box office top 5.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Wow.
The best performance that Amadeus did, even after the Oscars, where it would have had all of its legs, was 6th place. After 8 weeks. Yeah.
Dang.
Saul Zaentz, who produced this, also produced The English Patient. So he knows what he's doing.
He's like, we're going to slow roll this to a win, baby.
But he's king of the slow roll because The English Patient made $232 million.
Yeah. And again, almost all of that would have been in early 98 or early 97 after it won Best Picture. So, yeah. It's just
the Artist made 133 on $15 million budget.
Yep.
Hurt Locker didn't do so great. It made a little under 50 million on a $15 million budget, but still.
Hurt Locker is also at an era where, depending on what else was going on at that time. Well, I guess also the Artist.
And Birdman over 100 million.
Yeah. So the big difference these days is that. Remember when we talked about Silence of the Lambs? That was the first ever Best Picture winner to already be on VHS. So that was, releasing was just different back then. And very likely Amadeus never really had that wide of a release until after it won Best Picture, probably.
Right.
Whereas today, there's no real 40 years ago, there also wasn't as many screens as there are today, too. So, that there's no excuse for movies not to get wide releases today.
Yeah.
And also no excuse for movies not to get home video released faster. So,
it won.
Much to Jason's, happiness on that.
I don't want the death of cinema, but man, it needs to
You kind of don't ever want to go into one.
It's pretty rare. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for F. Murray Abraham. Tom Hulce was also nominated, but lost to F. Murray Abraham. I think that was the right choice.
He's F. Murray Abraham. Oh, one of the other things I wanted to say,
Best Adapted Screenplay, which is funny because it was the winner was adapting his own work.
Yeah.
Best Art Direction, nominated but lost Best Cinematography. Best Costumes, lost Best Editing, won Best Makeup, won Best Sound. What did
cinematography was that year was The Killing Fields.
That's a hell of a fucking
editing. Also, editing went to Killing Fields.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if a lot of the candlelit stuff was all natural light or not. I couldn't tell, which
I loved all this.
Either way, it's a credit to it. Yeah,
I loved all the single shots with a candle. Is it a candelabra? Is that what they're called? Just the 3-prong candle, where 2 of them were lit, 1 of them was out and smoking, and then someone's face was behind them. Damn, that looks cool.
Yeah.
And they did that multiple times in this movie.
Yeah. The costume design, the makeup, the art direction, that is why I think this is kind of the old school template for a Best Picture movie. It's the look more than anything else.
It nailed all the
it's all the visual
stuff.
Cues where it's growing up, it's if you saw a period piece that had all of these things in it, and it was seemingly on the surface a serious topic, then my brain would have automatically, when I was like 14, 15 years old, saying, oh, that's going to be nominated for, Best Picture or something, even if it's a piece of garbage movie. So,
right, well, it's like a lot of the Merchant Ivory stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That stuff was always manufactured to win Academy Awards. Yeah.
But it never won Best Picture. They never won Best Picture. They were always nominated, go right up to it, and maybe even sometimes get as many nominations as the movies they lost to, but wouldn't.
There's a Salieri of the Academy that couldn't get it across the finish line. I have a question. I have one more question before you continue. How many ninja stars?
Oh my gosh, 8. I'm double
8 ninjas.
I'm doing
2 ninja stars.
Right at that painting of his father, that grumpy painting. Yeah. One other thing I did want to say, F. Murray Abraham, of course, played Salieri. At a later point in time, in a different play, Patrick Stewart played Salieri. So the good guy and the bad guy of Star Trek Insurrection both played Salieri. I bet they talked about it on set.
You just got Star Trek in too.
I did.
You're winning. You're winning the reference war.
And
Jason doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't give a shit.
No, I was.
He's Mozart.
I was trying to verify Jeff's claim that Merchant Ivory never won, and I don't think they did.
Jeff
Remains of the Day was nominated, didn't win. Yeah.
Howard Zinn nominated, didn't win. What was the something? Something view. What's the
Room with
the View? That's it.
Yeah.
Nominated, didn't win.
Howard Zinn. Yeah, you said that. Yeah. Interesting.
We did it?
I think we did it. No, I think we did it. I think we've done it.
We've done it. So let's talk about what's coming up. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. What the hell is coming up?
What's next, Jeff?
June 12th, next Wednesday. Check in for our 318th episode. It's The Game.
Yeah.
David Fincher, right? Yes.
A little Fincher action for you.
And a little bit of Carol Baker returning.
Yep. Carol Baker. We got some Sean Penn. Some Douglas.
Some Michael Dougie. Yep. So yeah, that will be next Wednesday. Go to filmseizure.com. You can find all the places where you can subscribe to listen to the show. Also, follow us on the social medias, all of that. But that will happen. Also on all of those same places, this upcoming Monday, my newest episode of Monster Mondays is Son of Dracula, starring Lon Chaney Jr.
Nice.
Still cranking through some of the last of the Universal classics that I have there. That'll be filmseizure.com as well. This upcoming Friday at my website, bmovieenema.com, I have a review that you can read about American Rickshaw. See, I can get away from American Ninjas, but I can't get away from their rickshaws.
That's all I can.
Okay, thank you, Mozart. But this Saturday, you can tune in for a new episode of B Movie Enema, the series, where I host the 3 Fantastic Supermen. You might recognize a couple of the other voices of the 3 Fantastic Supermen if you listen to this show.
Okay. We're getting all the references.
We're getting them all in. So, that was good stuff. It's a good movie. It's a very good movie.
Thanks for the suggestion, listener.
Yes. Thanks, Kurt. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
Yeah.
Let us know what you thought, please. Let us know what you thought, Kurt.
Yeah. I definitely recommend it to anyone who likes music. And for me, I am Jeff Arbuckle.
I am Chuck Moore.
I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.